Good morning, Anthro1001. Good morning, great ones. The honor of your presence is once again requested as we transition from Chapter 4 on language and communication and analyzing the patterns in the words video that we did in class to Chapter 5 and your quiz on Chapter 5 on making a living, which is actually a chapter that every semester students hate. So I'm going to try a new strategy, a new adaptive strategy. Remember, this is culture. Learn ways of thinking, feeling, believing, and behaving. A barrel model of culture divided into three aspects of the barrel on the foundation of the environment. The bottom is the infrastructure and the tools and technology used to support that particular barrel model of culture. The environment is the specific time and place that that local setting exists in. The second part of the barrel is the social structure, and the top is the superstructure, the ideas, beliefs, values that that particular local setting abides by or has adapted to. So making a living seems to be about agrarian culture, and we in New York City don't like to talk about farming. I mean, we're well past that. We're evolved citizens, but there's a lot to learn about how we got to a particular place in the evolution of culture and societies. We went from foraging communities and hunter-gatherer communities, which were egalitarian, where there was no inequality of wealth, of resources, where there was no sense of ownership, to a place where ownership is the thing. Do you own your ideas? Do you own your own body? How much do you make? How much are you going to make a living? Why should I take this? Why should I major in this so I can make a lot of money? It's all about the income, or we live in a world where income inequality shapes our lives. So you could read this as not how foragers and horticulturals live, but how we evolved into a state of from equality as shared resources among kin to inequalities where we have negative reciprocity, where we don't share equally, we don't think of each other as equal, and we use all of these cultural phenomena to sustain a superstructure that inequality is what we're struggling to deal with. That would be an amazing place to come from while you're reading the chapter and studying for the quiz. So I want to remind you to set yourself up to win. Remember the ziplining metaphor, and this is where the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis comes in, where language kind of influences or shapes thought. Now, the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis was a hypothesis. It's not the truth. I mentioned this, I think, in both sections. All of this stuff is not about a true way of understanding humanity. I want you to examine a hypothesis of all of this stuff and see, self-test, how it relates to your conception of reality. Really see how language shapes your thoughts, your learned ways of thinking, feeling, believing, and behaving, the relationship of your environment to the social structures that we live in, and look at the chapter and how that evolved, okay? But set yourself up to win. The ziplining metaphor was about, so I'm using an adaptive strategy of language to help you alter the way you think about your study. I want you to set yourself up to win. Most people do not have their life organized to fulfill on the many good intentions and the numerous ill-conceived commitments they make over time, including the contract you made, including reading the syllabus. You have good intentions to do well by it, but you have to review it, and here's some strategies. I recommend that you keep a consistent routine to your study. Even I'm working on this. Set aside a specific time on specific days to do the work and take the actions required for you to fulfill on the contract you made for the work and action of the course. There's 3 recommendations inside that. Read and reread your notes from the previous chapter before you take the quiz. And before beginning any prior work, you could do that also before class. Bring out your notes and review them so that when we start talking, it's fresh in your memory, not what just happened on the elevator and coming to class. I recommend that you do this as early as possible. Like when we finish class on Wednesday, start doing the review of your notes for the coming quiz instead of waiting till the last minute. Resolve to take this recommendation seriously. Rather than diving into the work of any task, step back and look at the entirety of what you need to do, the work in action you need to fulfill to complete your homework or the assignment before the Monday at 7 a.m. Don't wait till the last minute. The other recommendations: don't get behind in that study. And I also recommend that you do this in an environment that's pleasing, in a place that's consistent, like your favorite place in the library. If you have to do your homework on the train, a quiet place with the right quiet music, something that doesn't distract you while you're doing your study. And you may have to elicit the cooperation of people in your environment, your roommates, your family, to say, don't bug me while I'm taking the quiz. Okay, those are the recommendations. So I want to focus on that this chapter 5 is it is a way of looking at how we got to societies that have inequality in wealth and in resources and in technology. So keep that in mind. What's the other thing? I talked about the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis and how language shapes thought. And remember those 5 biological attributes that we all have that are the seed of the adaptive strategies that we have developed, we call culture. So we have the ability, all human beings have the ability to learn, to think symbolically, to use language, to organize and adapt, to organize their lives and adapt to the environments in which they live. Well, I want you to pay attention to the patterns of that and use language and communication to get familiar and memorize those concepts of the evolution of what we can call an economic anthropology. And it's the barrel model of culture that will help you think about this. This chapter, chapter 5 on making a living, is really about the relationship between the environment and how we have food production and share resources, to the social structures that we have, how we're organized into groups. So that includes how we began to, all cultures have always had a division of labor by sex and by age. It's just gotten a lot more complex. We would include in the industrial complex race and ethnicity and nationality play a role in the division of labor. Who does migrant labor, day labor, versus who does Wall Street labor. So this is really relevant if you're interested in economics, if you're interested in how inequality works, and if you're interested in how wealth came about, because it didn't exist in foraging communities. And the idea that there were people who were of influence in foraging communities and in horticultural communities, but the idea of a leader came later with chiefdoms and with the state economy. So just to give you a little overview of that, and I just want to leave you with a couple of thoughts, and then I need to do a little business. I went to a teaching and learning workshop with about 30 other faculty on a Friday at 12:30 in the vertical campus, run by a master teacher named Ken Bain, B-A-I-N. He wrote a book called What the Best Teachers Do. What the best college teachers do, and now he has a new book out called What the Best College Students Do, which I highly recommend that you get and read. Ken Bain, B-A-I-N is his name. And he talked about surface versus strategic versus deep learners. And I want to invite you, oh great ones, to consider that many of you are surface or strategic learners, and the aim is to get to become a deep learner. And the distinction between that, I'll tell you from my notes, is that surface learners are predominantly driven by fear. Oh my God, I'm going to be in trouble if I don't do this on the quiz. Oh my God, did I do the homework? That kind of a thing. Survival is their primary goal. Can I get through this course? And that seems to be the easiest way or the easiest route for the surface learner, but it's actually the most laborious. The next is the strategic learner, and their approach to learning is that they're driven by the recognition of high grades. They want to get the good grade. They know strategically how to do that, probably before they take any class that they're in, that they get A's in. They never take big risks. They don't take courses that would mess with their GPA. and they seldom become adaptive learners or adaptive experts. They tend to follow procedures and they don't think conceptually. Adaptive learners or deep learners, they have both the ability to be strategic in their learning, but they have an attitude and an ability for invention, like inventing new ways of studying and inventing new ways of thinking, inventing new ways of learning, because they are very, they like to take on the unknown. They like to go into the chaotic realm and figure something out newly. And our society needs more deep learners. We have a lot of people who are on automatic going through life, doing what they're told, doing what their parents expect them to do, or just doing what the crowd does. And so I invite you to be an adaptive learner. So one place that you need to be an adaptive learner in my class is we alter the schedule based on how fast we're moving. So if you look on Blackboard, you'll find the changes to the assignments, particularly the dates for the drinking ritual, which I'm going to return on Monday. The date due, which is October 16th, after we have a break. October 14th, we don't have class, Columbus Day, I believe. That's another story. Talk about adaptive strategies and language. You know, Columbus invented America. And how that shapes thoughts, feeling, actions, and behavior. But anyhow, I digress. Go to Blackboard, go to notes and handouts, and in there you'll find the work